Black girl tests. Hotel staff. By disguising as cleaner. Minutes later, the truth. Explodes. The morning sun poured through the glass facade of the Regency Heights Hotel, gilding every marble tile and chandelier in a warm, deceptive glow. Beneath the surface elegance, however, the machine of the hotel moved with polished apathy. Valets nodded robotically, concierges offered clipped smiles, and housekeeping carts squeaked down back hallways unnoticed. Sierra Daniels stood just inside the service entrance, adjusting the waistband of her oversized navy blue uniform. Her fingers were steady as she smoothed the plastic ID badge clipped to her chest. The name read Elise, not Sierra. Her hair was tied in a low bun under a faded cleaning cap, and her sharp eyes were hidden behind smudged lenses of dollar store glasses. She carried no purse, no watch, and no hint of the multimillionaire executive she really was. She glanced once at her reflection in the utility closet's dusty mirror. Convincing. Her phone buzzed inside her sock, where she'd stashed it for discretion. A single message from Jamal read, "Clock starts now. Be safe." She slid the mop bucket forward, the wheels groaning in protest as if they knew what she was walking into. The scent of industrial cleaner clung to the air as she moved into the hotel's public corridor, instantly greeted by dismissive glances from passing staff. The front desk came into view, a towering white counter staffed by a young white man with slicked back hair and a bored expression. His nameplate read, Ethan. He was busy scrolling on his phone, barely looking up as guests lined up. One of those guests was a black woman in a tailored coat, holding the hand of a little boy. She stepped forward to ask about early check-in. "We're not doing early check-ins for standard rooms," Ethan muttered, eyes still on his screen. "But the website said, it's not guaranteed," he cut her off sharply. "And you're not the only guest here." Sierra paused mid-step, her hand tightening around the mop handle. 2 paces behind the woman, a white couple with gym bags was immediately ushered forward by a smiling staffer who had just emerged from the back. No ID check, no delay. The woman and her son stepped aside without complaint, but their shoulders slumped. Sierra's jaw clenched, but she kept moving. Invisible, just like she planned. She pushed through a side hallway, heading for the employee break room. Along the way, she passed Carson Blake, the operations manager, barking orders into a headset while holding a designer coffee. "You tell maintenance that if that pipe bursts again, I want someone fired. And I mean today." His gaze flicked to Sierra. He didn't acknowledge her, just walked past. Inside the break room, the air smelled of reheated soup and cheap coffee. A Latina woman in her late 40s sat quietly by the vending machine eating a sandwich. She looked up as Sierra entered. "You're new?" she said, voice cautious but kind. Sierra nodded. "Started today." The woman extended a hand. "Rosa." "Housekeeping floor 2. "Elise," Sierra replied, taking the hand. "I'm just trying to stay out of the way." Rosa gave a small smile. "That's the rule." As they spoke, a voice cut in from the doorway. "Hey, cleanup crew! We've got a spill on 9. Get on it!" The man who spoke was Greg from Facilities, a mid-level tech with a perpetual scowl and a badge swinging off his belt like a trophy. He didn't wait for a response before disappearing. Sierra gave Rosa a glance. "That normal?" "All the time," Rosa shrugged. "You'll get used to it." Sierra said nothing. Instead, she pulled the cleaning cart back into the hall, making her way to the elevator. The closer she got to the 9th floor, the more her heart pounded. Not out of fear, but fury. Room 914 had reported a spill. When she arrived, the door was open. A white man in a designer polo shirt stood just inside. "Took you long enough," he grunted.
You people never show up on time. Sierra kept her face neutral. Apologies, sir. She entered, taking mental snapshots of everything. The smell of alcohol, the woman's jacket on the bed, the way the man loomed just a little too close as she mopped the floor. Her name wasn't in the system.
No one here knew her, if he tried something. But he didn't. He left her in silence, grumbling as he stepped out to take a call.
When she returned to the hallway, she caught a glimpse of the floor supervisor, Trina Calloway, berating a younger staffer. "You call this sanitized?" Trina barked. "What do you think this is, a budget motel?" "I'm sorry," the girl stammered, holding back tears.
Trina leaned closer.
"Sorry doesn't fix health code violations."
Sierra's blood simmered. No coaching. No dignity. Just humiliation. She turned the corner and found herself standing in front of a large window that overlooked the main lobby.
From this angle, the chandeliers glistened and guests milled about with curated smiles. It was a painting.
A lie. 12 minutes into her shift, and she'd seen enough to fill an HR report. But she wasn't here to fill out reports. She was here to dismantle a culture. She reached under her sleeve, pressed the discreet button on the recording mic tucked beneath her uniform collar, and whispered, "Timestamp. Day 1. Everything is as expected." "Worse, even. I'll begin phase 2 after lunch." She moved to the stairwell and descended quietly, unnoticed, invisible. That's how they wanted her. Exactly how she needed them to see her. But the truth was about to explode, and they wouldn't see it coming. By the second day, Sierra Daniels had perfected the art of being unseen. The mop, the slouched posture, the carefully blank expression, every detail worked like armor. No one looked twice at the cleaner wheeling supplies past them in the guest corridors, or pausing just long enough in staff hallways to overhear the latest cruel remark. At 8:27 a.m., she entered the staff elevator with a cart that rattled slightly too loudly. No one joined her. On the 3rd floor, she stepped out and headed to the West Wing. Room 320 had submitted a minor housekeeping request, but she wasn't headed there for towels. She was running a test. Outside room 319, a tray of untouched breakfast dishes sat beside a door with a "Do Not Disturb" sign. Sierra set her cart aside and knocked lightly. No response. She waited 5 seconds, then knocked again. The door creaked open a few inches. A soft voice called out, "Can I help you?" Sierra leaned in slightly. "Apologies, ma'am. I'm just checking in. There was a guest complaint about a lingering smell on the floor." The woman, a black mother in her early 40s, wearing a work badge on a lanyard that read Children's Legal Fund, peeked out. "Oh!" "I didn't smell anything." Sierra smiled. "Thanks. May I ask if you received a courtesy call last night?" "New policy says front desk checks in within the first hour." The woman looked confused. "No. Actually, it took them an hour just to find my reservation. They said there was a system error." There it was again, another system error that always seemed to affect guests who looked like her. "Thank you," Sierra said warmly. "If you need anything, call down." "Don't let them brush you off." She was already moving down the hall before the woman could ask anything more. In room 325, she encountered Rosa, who was pulling a fresh sheet over a king-size bed. Sierra stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "Hey," Sierra said low. Rosa looked up, surprised. "You okay?" "I need a favor." Rosa set the pillow down. "You in trouble?" "No, but I'm going to test the front desk." Rosa narrowed her eyes. "What kind of test?" "I'm going to go downstairs dressed like a guest."
Lost tourist type. I want to see how they treat me compared to others. You've seen it.
"I just need proof."
Rosa hesitated. "You're really not just a cleaner, are you?" Sierra looked her straight in the eye. "No."
"And one day soon, you'll understand why that matters." That afternoon, Sierra returned to the hotel through the main entrance, wearing fitted slacks, a cream blouse, and a crossbody bag that screamed casual professionalism. Her hair was loose, her badge and uniform gone. She looked like any black woman on a business trip, harmless, but not high priority. At the front desk stood Ethan again, still scrolling. She waited behind a white couple with backpacks and worn luggage. He greeted them with a bright smile, even joked about the husband's beard. They laughed. When they stepped away, Sierra stepped forward.
"Hi. I was told to come here for city tour info. I'm staying just a few blocks away."
Ethan didn't look up.
"Website's got that?" "Right," Sierra said calmly. "But I was hoping to ask someone directly. See what's actually worth seeing."
He sighed, finally glancing at her.
"There's a map over there."
"Knock yourself out." Just then, a young blonde woman in athleisure walked up beside her. Ethan's demeanor changed instantly. "Welcome to the Heights," he said smoothly.
"Need help finding something?"
Sierra didn't move. She just watched. The woman smiled and chatted like they were old friends. He pulled out a printed schedule for her, offered to call a car service, gave her a restaurant recommendation without being asked. Sierra stayed silent until the woman left. She stepped closer to the desk. "You didn't even ask if I needed help," she said, voice calm. Ethan blinked. "You said you weren't staying here. That stops you from offering help?" "Ma'am, I'm very busy," he said, backing into defensiveness. "You can file a complaint if you want."
"Oh, I will,"
Sierra said, turning and walking away. Except she wasn't headed for the guest lounge. She took the side corridor, slipped down the employee stairwell, and returned to the supply closet on floor 4. Inside, she pulled off the blouse and swapped it for her uniform shirt. In minutes, Elise the janitor was back. Later that day, during her routine in the staff cafeteria, she overheard Trina Calloway complaining to Carson. 3 more refund requests this week from guests claiming staff were rude."
"This generation is soft,"
Carson scoffed.
"They play the race card anytime they don't get sparkling water."
Sierra's stomach turned. As she turned to leave, Malik, the young bellhop with gentle eyes, caught her shoulder. "You okay?" She looked at him. Long pause. "No. But I'm getting there." That night, back in her private rented flat, she uploaded the audio clips, the surveillance snapshots, and her observations into a secure cloud folder titled Regency Report, Phase 1. She recorded a voice memo. "They think I'm a cleaner, just another disposable hand. But I've seen it. I've felt it. We're going to flip the mirror. One way or another, they will see themselves for who they really are." She ended the recording, and quietly she smiled. Because the cracks were already starting to show. The air in the staff corridors had changed. It was subtle, but Sierra could feel it. Conversations hushed as she passed. Eye contact lingered longer. Whispers followed her mop bucket. Someone had started to suspect her. She kept her posture relaxed, her movements slow, practiced. But every step she took through the Regency Heights Hotel now carried an extra layer of calculation. She knew her time under the radar was running out. That morning, she had slipped a small audio recorder into the fake utility belt she wore and headed for the 2nd floor. She'd chosen that hallway for a reason. Room 204 had filed a noise complaint 3 days in a row and had received no response. The guest was an older black man, registered under a veteran's discount. Every time he called, Trina marked the complaint resolved. Sierra had verified it personally. No one had followed up. When she approached the room with a cart she didn't need, the door was ajar.
Inside, the veteran was sitting by the window, his leg in a brace, a crutch leaning against the wall. "Excuse me," Sierra said gently. "I'm just passing through." "Everything all right in here?" The man turned, surprised. "You with maintenance or something?" "Housekeeping," she said. "Sort of." He squinted at her, skeptical but not unkind. "You don't look like the others." She smiled slightly. "That's the point." He gave a dry chuckle. "Well, maybe you can tell your people that the pipe in this bathroom still sounds like it's coughing up gravel." "I reported it 3 times. All I got was a call saying it was taken care of." Sierra stepped inside, eyes scanning. The floor was dry, but the pipe gurgled every 30 seconds like a dying throat. She nodded. "I'll get that looked at. Promise." As she stepped back into the hallway, she tapped her earpiece. "Note, room 204. Complaint unresolved. Guest misled. Pattern of neglect confirmed." She didn't realize someone was watching her. Down the hall just beyond the corner stood Marcus Finch, the hotel's head of security. A former cop with a trimmed beard and a reputation for being by the book, Marcus was rarely seen walking the guest floors. But today, he was leaning just far enough out of sight, one eye tracking her movement. Later that afternoon, Sierra entered the housekeeping lounge to find Rosa waiting, eyes tense. "You were right," Rosa said in a low voice. "Something's going on." "They're looking into someone. I think it might be you." Sierra didn't flinch. "What do you mean?" "Trina's been asking questions." "Where you transferred from? Who trained you? Why there's no file in the old system?" Sierra sat slowly. "How do you know?" Rosa hesitated, then whispered, "Because I heard her ask Marcus to pull the building's internal footage, not lobby cams." "Staff hallways." Sierra stared at the floor for a long moment, heart thudding. "I knew it was coming. Just not this fast." Rosa's eyes softened. "You want me to say something?" "No," Sierra said firmly. "Don't do anything. I'll handle it." That night, she changed plans. Instead of shadowing housekeeping calls, she returned to her rented flat early. On the dining table, she laid out printed copies of guest surveys flagged for attitude from staff, all logged under Trina's department. Most had been marked resolved, with identical language. Guest error, no further action required. She opened her laptop and pulled up the footage Jamal had helped her retrieve remotely from internal servers. One clip showed Ethan ignoring a guest's complaint. Another captured Carson dismissing a kitchen worker's injury as clumsiness. Then came the one that hit harder than she expected. A teenage black girl standing at the front desk, looking lost. Her suitcase too big for her hands, no adult nearby. She asked something inaudible. Ethan pointed off to the side, shaking his head. The girl's shoulders slumped. He turned back to his computer. Then he laughed. At her. Sierra paused the video. A moment of silence stretched in the room. Her chest felt tight. She stood and walked to the window, breathing slowly. This wasn't about isolated incidents anymore. This was a system, and she wasn't here to bandage it. She was here to dismantle it. The next morning, she changed into civilian clothes, neutral slacks, a blazer, no badge, and walked through the main lobby around 9:00 a.m., blending in as a guest. At the front desk, Ethan was mid-conversation with a middle-aged white woman about champagne delivery. He smiled wide, laughing like they were old friends. Sierra stood behind her, silent, waiting. When the woman left, Sierra stepped up. "Hi. Just wondering if there's a manager I can speak to about a staff issue." Ethan barely glanced at her. "You staying here?" "Yes." He sighed, uninterested. "You'll have to go through the app. Guest services." "No chance I can leave a note?" He rolled his eyes. I mean, you can, but it probably won't get anywhere.
Thank you,
she said flatly, and walked away. In the corner of her glasses, a tiny lens hidden behind the frame blinked twice. Footage saved. She turned the corner and disappeared down the staff hallway, just as Marcus stepped into the lobby from the elevator, scanning the crowd. She was gone. That night, Sierra called Jamal. I think Marcus is getting close. I need phase 2 ready by Friday. You sure? Jamal asked. No, she replied, but they're about to find out what it feels like to be watched. She hung up. And finally, allowed herself to feel it. The anger, the exhaustion, but also the purpose. She wasn't just testing them anymore. She was preparing to expose them all. The day began like any other on the surface. Warm croissants in the lobby, violin music playing from the speakers, white roses arranged perfectly by the entrance. But underneath the performance, Sierra Daniels felt the hotel breathing differently. A little faster, a little louder. She was scheduled to clean the East Wing rooms that morning, but she redirected herself to the front lobby. There was a hunch she couldn't ignore, and she was right. At 9:46 a.m., she watched from the shadow of a marble column as a teenage black girl stepped tentatively into the grand lobby, her sneakers squeaking softly against the tile. She was alone. A wheeled suitcase twice her size lagged behind her, and a backpack hung off one shoulder. She walked up to the front desk. Ethan was there, tapping on his keyboard. He didn't look up. Hi, the girl said, voice shaky. My mom's parking the car. She said I should ask for the room key. Ethan glanced at her, then down again. You can't check in without an ID. She said she already did it online. He shrugged. Then wait until she comes back. The girl hesitated. She's just in the garage. I'm not running back and forth because you're impatient. Please step aside. Sierra felt her blood run hot. The girl's shoulders sagged. Her eyes darted around the lobby. Other guests watched. One woman wrinkled her nose. A man rolled his eyes. Sierra moved. She stepped out of the shadow and walked directly to the girl, crouching to her level. Hey. You okay? The girl blinked fast. I'm fine. You don't look fine. The girl hesitated. He said I couldn't stand here. Sierra looked up at Ethan. He noticed her and instantly straightened. This isn't your business, he said. She's not even a guest. Sierra stood. Then why are you humiliating her in the middle of the lobby? She was loitering. She was waiting for her mother. Look, Ethan said sharply. I don't know what you think this is, but staff need to stay in staff areas. At that moment, Trina Calloway appeared from the back office, heels clicking like accusations. Is there a problem? She asked coldly. Sierra turned to her, jaw tight. Yes, there's a problem when a teenage girl is being scolded for simply existing. Trina glanced at Ethan, then at the girl, and made a quick calculation. Let's not make a scene. You already did, Sierra said. Trina's eyes narrowed. You're a janitor. You are not authorized to interact with guests this way. Sierra turned to the girl, bent down again. What's your name? Imani, the girl whispered. Sierra nodded. Your mom's in the garage, right? Imani nodded. Go sit by that window, Sierra said gently. I'll wait with you. Imani hesitated, then slowly made her way to a cushioned bench near the glass, away from the eyes. Trina stepped closer. This is gross insubordination. You're done. Sierra looked her dead in the eye. Not yet. She walked off, leaving Trina frozen, unsure what had just shifted. Later that afternoon, Sierra found Rosa in the linen closet. I broke protocol, Sierra said simply. Rosa stopped folding. What happened? Sierra told her everything. When she finished, Rosa was quiet for a long moment. That's the girl from last week, she said softly. I saw her and her mom at the elevator. They looked so excited to be here. They won't feel that way now.
What are you going to do?
Sierra leaned against the shelves. Tell you the truth. She closed the closet door, then pulled off her cleaning badge. My name's not Elise. Rosa stared. I figured. My name is Sierra Daniels. I'm on the board of directors for Morningside Properties. We own this hotel, and 5 others. Rosa's mouth parted. Her voice came in a whisper. You're corporate? I am. And you've been cleaning rooms? Sierra nodded. Watching, recording, gathering everything. Why? Because the reports I saw in my office didn't match what the managers were sending in. Because people like you keep getting stepped on. Because that girl, Imani, should have been treated like a guest, not a burden. Rosa sat slowly. What do you want from me? I want you to help me expose it. Rosa looked away, thinking, then looked back. You gonna clean house? Sierra's voice was steady. From the lobby to the top floor. That night in her apartment, Sierra uploaded everything. The footage of Ethan, the confrontation, Imani's scared face. She opened a secure call with Jamal. They're onto me. I broke cover, but it was worth it. You want me to hold phase 2? No, move it up. You sure? I'm sure. Tomorrow we start building the list. Who's first? Everyone in leadership, she said. But Trina's going to be the face of it. She ended the call and stared at her screen. For a moment she saw her own reflection in the monitor, not the cleaner, not the executive. Just a woman who had had enough. And she knew she wasn't alone anymore. The next morning, the Regency Heights Hotel ran like clockwork, at least on the surface. Valets hustled at the curb, housekeepers glided quietly from room to room, and front desk staff rehearsed their smiles like actors in a long-running play. But the cast didn't know someone had rewritten the script overnight. Sierra Daniels stood alone in the service elevator, her janitor's uniform folded neatly in the duffel bag slung over her shoulder. Today, she wore a navy suit, not corporate polished, but clean and sharp enough to demand attention. The badge clipped to her chest read, Director, Morningside Properties. Her face was calm, but her mind ran with precision. She stepped out onto the executive floor and moved straight toward Conference Room B, where the department heads were holding their weekly operations meeting. The doors were partially closed, but voices inside were raised. Trina Calloway. Look, I'm not saying she wasn't out of line, but janitors don't have the authority to question front desk policy. She escalated in front of guests. That's a liability. And what about your liability, Trina? Sierra said as she pushed the doors open. Every head turned. Trina's expression collapsed into confusion, then disbelief. Excuse me, who are... Sierra held up her badge, stepped into the room, and let the silence settle. I'm Sierra Daniels, owner representative. And I've been working alongside all of you for the last 3 weeks under the name Elise. Gasps rippled around the table. Carson Blake leaned forward, hands steepled. Wait. You're the cleaner from West Wing. I was, Sierra replied calmly. Now I'm here to talk about how this hotel has treated its guests and its staff. Trina laughed nervously. This is a stunt, right? Some corporate test. No, Trina, Sierra said, stepping closer. This is a mirror, and I brought it to show you exactly who you are. She dropped a black folder onto the table. Inside were printed screenshots, guest complaints, surveillance stills, and a report labeled Internal Culture Assessment, Unredacted. Marcus, the head of security,
sat stiff in the corner. "This kind of infiltration, ma'am, with all due respect, this could violate—" Sierra cut him off. "You mean violate the trust of the people being silenced?" "Because I have over 70 documented cases where staff or guests of color were ignored, dismissed, or penalized for speaking up, and a good number of them lead right back to this room." No one spoke. "I've got footage of Ethan denying services to multiple minority guests," she continued, voice rising. "I have records of Trina signing off on falsified housekeeping reports. Carson, I've got staff interviews describing how injuries were covered up to avoid workers' comp claims." "You've been spying on us?" Trina snapped. Sierra leaned in. "No, I've been watching you. There's a difference." "Spying is sneaky. This is called accountability." Carson shifted uncomfortably. "You can't just—" "Oh, I can," she said, steel entering her voice. "And I will." She turned to the rest of the staff, many of whom now looked down at the table. "I didn't come here to humiliate anyone. I came here because the culture of this hotel is sick. And what's worse is that it's being defended by people who think their title makes them untouchable." Trina stood. "So what? You're going to fire us all? Cancel us?" "I'm not cancelling anything," Sierra replied. "I'm disinfecting the mold." Then she dropped the real blow. "In 48 hours, we're hosting an emergency all-staff meeting in the Grand Ballroom. Required attendance. At that meeting, I'll present a full transparency report of everything I've uncovered. I'll be naming names, showing faces, and anyone who wants to come clean before then should meet me in my office by 6 p.m. Today, the silence was suffocating. Trina stepped forward, but there was a crack in her confidence now. "This is harassment," she said. "You went undercover. You tricked people." "No," Sierra said, holding her stare. "I gave you a chance to show me who you were when no one was watching." "And you did." She turned and walked out, heels clicking with quiet authority. Back in her office, Sierra dropped into the chair, her phone buzzing with a message from Jamal. Everything in place. Phase 3. Ready. Press already asking questions. You sure about going public this soon? She typed back one word. Yes. An hour later, a soft knock sounded on her door. Rosa stepped in, eyes low. "There's someone here to see you." Sierra stood. "Who?" "Marcus. And 2 staff from the kitchen. They say they want to talk." Sierra nodded. "Bring them in." As the door closed behind Rosa, Sierra exhaled, long and slow. This wasn't the storm yet. It was just the first gust of wind, and she had every intention of tearing the whole rotten structure down, one lie at a time. By noon the next day, the pressure inside the Regency Heights Hotel had grown so thick it clung to every polished surface. Whispers passed faster than room service carts. Some employees smiled tighter, walked faster, avoided eye contact altogether. Others, especially those who had long felt invisible, held their heads just a little higher. In the executive conference room, Sierra sat across from 3 employees: Marcus Finch, head of security, Luis Delgado, a dishwasher from the kitchen, and Ayanna Brooks, a night shift concierge with tired eyes and a voice that rarely rose above a whisper. Marcus spoke first. "I owe you the truth." Sierra leaned forward, watching him carefully. "I suspected you weren't who you said you were a few days in," he admitted. "Not because of anything you did. Just instinct." "But I didn't say anything." "Why not?" she asked. "Because I figured if someone's going that far undercover, it's for a reason." Ayanna cleared her throat softly. "People don't listen when you file complaints, Mizzy." "Daniels, but they sure react when you threaten to quit." Luis nodded in agreement. "I've seen kitchen managers reuse expired food. When I spoke up, I lost 2 shifts a week." Sierra looked at each of them.
And now? Marcus exhaled. We're ready to back you.
But you've got enemies here, ones you haven't seen yet. Sierra raised an eyebrow. Names? Marcus hesitated, then said, Gerald Meeks, Regional Director.
Corporate man. He heard about the upcoming meeting. I think he's flying in tomorrow. That fast? He's afraid of fallout, Ayana added. Word's getting around. Guests are asking questions. Someone leaked that a mystery exec is about to shake things up. Sierra sat back. Her plan was moving, but faster than she had anticipated. That wasn't necessarily bad. It just meant she needed to prepare. She stood. Thank you. I won't forget this. As they left the room, Rosa stepped in with a tablet in hand. Surveillance footage is prepped. We've compiled a master folder. 3 sets, 1 for internal review, 1 for legal, 1 for the press, if it comes to that. Sierra took the tablet and skimmed the first few files. Trina berating a black housekeeper over a missed towel count.
Ethan rolling his eyes and turning away from a mother with 2 children. Carson laughing at a catering server who spilled wine on a guest's shoes. It was all there. Quiet, clean, and damning.
Get the legal copies to Jamal, Sierra said. Tell him we may need to go wider. That evening, Sierra walked the halls not as a cleaner, but not fully as an executive either. She was something in between. Her presence now stirred unease in some and silent relief in others. She was beginning to be seen, not as a title but as a reckoning. As she passed the staff locker area, she heard her name spoken. Shh. I heard she's here to fire everyone, someone whispered. Good, another voice said. They've been getting away with it too long. She turned the corner and saw Marlon, a doorman who'd worked the entrance for 12 years, standing with Nadine from laundry. Both stopped when they saw her. Sierra raised her hands slightly. Relax. I'm not here to fire anyone who does the work. Marlon's face softened. Then you got nothing to worry about from us. She smiled. That's what I thought. He stepped forward. What happens at the meeting tomorrow? Sierra thought for a moment. Change, but it won't be easy. And not everyone's going to like it. Nadine crossed her arms. We've been waiting on easy for years. We can handle the rest. Back in her office, Sierra reviewed the final edits on her internal report. The top of the first page read, Phase 3, The Reckoning. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. To her surprise, it was Ethan. He looked smaller without the desk. Out of place. His voice was low. I heard what you're doing. She said nothing. Look, I didn't know who you were. If I had... Sierra cut him off. That's the problem. You only treat people with respect if you know they have power. He flushed. I didn't mean it like that. No, you meant exactly that. And that's why you're on the list. He blinked. What list? You'll find out tomorrow. Ethan stood frozen for a second, then turned and walked out. Sierra sat back, her eyes landing on the plaque on the wall behind her desk. It read, Leadership is not about control. It's about care. She had kept it from her days running her first non-profit, and tomorrow she would carry that same principle into the ballroom and drop a truth bomb the hotel wouldn't recover from, because the walls had heard enough. Now it was time for them to speak. The morning of the staff meeting arrived cloaked in nerves and rumor. The grand ballroom at the Regency Heights, normally reserved for wedding receptions and corporate galas, had been stripped of glamour. No soft jazz, no gold-rimmed champagne flutes. Just rows of plain chairs facing a modest stage flanked by 2 projection screens. By 10:30 a.m., the energy in the halls had shifted from curious tension to full-blown speculation. Staff whispered behind utility carts and locker doors.
Word had traveled fast that the janitor wasn't a janitor. That Sierra Daniels, now walking openly with her Morningside Properties badge, had come not just to clean rooms, but to clean house. At 11:15, Gerald Meeks arrived. The regional director's presence sent a chill through the executive wing. Tall, lean, and always dressed like he was 5 minutes from a press conference, Gerald's reputation preceded him. He rarely showed up unless profits were threatened, and he had no patience for disruption, especially not from within. He stepped into Sierra's office uninvited.
"You went too far," he said flatly. Sierra didn't look up from her screen. "Good morning to you too. I just got off a call with New York."
"Do you understand the damage this kind of stunt could cause to the brand?" She turned to face him. "The brand is already damaged. I'm just giving people the receipts."
You're blowing smoke, he snapped.
"Staff get frustrated. Guests complain. That's life in hospitality." "But you staged a spy operation in your own building." "I didn't spy," she said evenly. "I observed. I listened. Something you haven't done in years." He slammed a hand on her desk. "You're risking millions in PR. Lawsuits, investor panic. If you care about this hotel, you'll cancel the meeting." She stood slowly. "If I cared about protecting abuse and silence, I wouldn't be here. But I care about justice, Gerald. So no, I'm not canceling anything. You'll regret this." "No," she said, brushing past him. "You will?" At 11:45, staff began to file into the ballroom. Marlon from Valet took a seat beside Rosa, who nodded at him with quiet recognition. Luis slipped in through the side with 2 other kitchen workers. Ayanna sat near the front, notebook in hand. Even Marcus, who usually preferred the shadows, sat openly in the second row. Trina entered last, her blazer crisp, her face unreadable. She sat toward the back, near Carson and Ethan, who looked like they were bracing for a courtroom verdict. At exactly noon, the lights dimmed, and Sierra stepped onto the stage. No intro music. No spotlight, just her voice. "Thank you for coming," she began. "You've heard rumors, you've seen the shifts, and today, I'm confirming what many of you already know. I've been here, with you, not as an executive in a corner office, but as Elise, the cleaner." Murmurs echoed through the room. She paused, scanning the crowd. "I did this not to deceive, but to understand, to see the truth in how this place runs. And what I found..." She turned to the screen. Camilla, standing off stage, tapped her tablet. Footage rolled. Trina mocking a guest's request. Ethan turning away a family asking for assistance. Carson laughing at a housekeeper's injury report. Then, a still image of Imani, the teenage girl who had stood at the front desk, embarrassed, alone, her face frozen in a moment of shame. Gasps broke through the silence. Sierra stepped back to the mic. "This isn't about a few bad moments. This is about a culture, one where arrogance outranked empathy, where race and status decided how you were treated, and that ends now." Trina stood suddenly. "This is character assassination." "You manipulated people, you can't just..." "I can," Sierra said, calm and firm, "because what you called business as usual was a pattern of discrimination. And you were a leader in it." Carson rose too. "We didn't know who you were." "That's exactly why this matters," she said, "because you shouldn't have to know someone's title to treat them with basic respect." She took a breath, then continued. "Effective immediately, several management roles are under review. Others are terminated. And going forward, every promotion, every complaint, every policy will be reviewed by a new ethics committee, composed of frontline staff." The crowd stirred, stunned. Sierra gestured, and Rosa stood from her seat,
along with Marcus, Luis, Ayana, and Marlon. "These are your new committee leads," Sierra announced. "Not because they wore a suit, but because they showed integrity when no one was watching." There was a beat of silence.
Then applause. Real. Raw.
Growing by the second. Sierra looked toward the back. Gerald stood in the doorway, arms crossed, but saying nothing.
This wasn't his fight anymore. It belonged to the people who had built the hotel from the ground up. As the room rose to its feet, Sierra leaned into the mic once more.
"This isn't the end. It's the beginning of a culture that serves people, not just guests. And to those who still believe respect must be earned by power, you might want to update your resume." She stepped down from the stage to a standing ovation. Behind her, the screens faded to black. But for the first time in a long time, the truth was front and center.
And it wasn't going anywhere. 3 days had passed since the staff meeting that cracked open the foundation of the Regency Heights Hotel. The once tightly wound luxury machine now moved with a different rhythm.
Not perfect, not seamless, but honest, and something far rarer in the hospitality industry, accountable. Sierra Daniels stood at the edge of the mezzanine, looking down at the lobby below.
Guests checked in with less forced smiles. A teenage bellhop helped an elderly couple with their bags, nodding politely. Ayana stood confidently at the concierge desk, her voice steady as she gave directions to a museum downtown.
What used to feel like a show now felt like service. Behind Sierra, the elevator dinged, and Camilla stepped out holding a stack of folders. Press is still buzzing.
Newsweek wants an exclusive, so does The Root, and corporate just sent over the revised code of conduct for final review. Sierra nodded.
"Send it to the committee. I want their input first." Camilla smiled. "They're still a little stunned, you know." "You gave them more power in 1 week than most had in a decade." "They earned it," Sierra said simply. Camilla stepped forward. "And what about you?" "What now?" Sierra turned back to the glass. "I finished what I started." Down in the lobby, Trina was being escorted out by HR. Her posture was rigid, chin up, but her steps faltered. Her replacement. A woman named Denise Marshall, promoted from guest relations. A woman who once slept in her car during double shifts because she couldn't afford rent between paychecks. Now, she would help rewrite how this hotel treated people from the ground up. Outside the hotel, reporters lined the sidewalk. Microphones and lenses waited for Sierra. She took the elevator down, calm and composed, then stepped through the doors into the sunlight. The cameras surged. "Sierra, is this just a hotel issue or something bigger? Do you expect lawsuits? Was this retaliation or reform?" Sierra raised her hand gently, and the questions quieted. "I didn't come here to expose individuals," she said. "I came here to reveal a system, a way of thinking that says power equals respect. That says if you wear a name tag or a janitor's uniform, you're less than the guest in the penthouse. And I came here to say no more." Cameras flashed. Pens scribbled. She continued. "We uncovered racism, classism, disrespect that was written off as just the job. But the truth? The truth is every place that serves the public is built on the backs of people most guests never see. The cleaners, the cooks, the night shift. The people who aren't on the website but make the experience possible." A young reporter stepped forward. "So what happens next?" Sierra looked right into the lens of the nearest camera. "What happens next is we rebuild, not just with policy, but with culture. Every guest deserves respect. Every employee deserves dignity. And if that makes some executives uncomfortable, good. Change is supposed to be uncomfortable." Later that afternoon, she returned to the staff lounge. The bulletin board now held more than just schedules. It featured handwritten notes from employees. "Thank you.
We see you.
Finally, someone listened. Marlon approached, his usual calm replaced with something warmer. You said this place would feel different. I didn't believe it. But now I get it. Sierra smiled. You're part of it. I know, he said, then added quietly. Took long enough. That evening, Sierra walked to the janitor's closet, the one she used when all this began. It was still there, still cramped and dim, still smelling faintly of bleach. She stepped inside. In the corner stood her old mop and bucket, exactly where she had left them. She didn't touch them, just looked for a moment.
Remembered. She closed the door gently, turned the light off, and walked away without looking back. The hotel would continue without her in the shadows.
Her job wasn't to stay hidden anymore. It was to lead in plain sight, and to remind anyone watching that titles don't define impact. Courage does. If you've made it this far, thank you for following Sierra's journey. If her fight for dignity, justice, and change inspired you, don't let it end with the last word. Share this story. Leave a comment. Subscribe for more stories that reflect the real power of everyday people who rise against the system. Because justice doesn't wear a suit, it wears truth, and truth never stays hidden for long.